I looked down at the folded napkin that had just appeared next to my dinner plate. My 11-year-old grandson Tommy was sitting across from me, his eyes wide and urgent, finger pressed to his lips. The gesture was so serious, so unlike his usual playful self, that my hand trembled slightly as I unfolded it under the table. The message, written in his careful handwriting, made my blood run cold. "Grandma, check your bank account. Right now. Trust me." I glanced up at him, confused, but he was now innocently cutting his turkey, refusing to meet my eyes. Around the table, my Thanksgiving dinner continued as if nothing had happened. My daughter Michelle was laughing at something her husband said. My son David was refilling wine glasses. And Karen, my best friend of almost a year, was complimenting my sweet potato casserole for the third time. That's when I noticed Tommy watching Karen with an expression I'd never seen on his young face before. It was pure, cold fear. Something was very, very wrong. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. My name is Linda Morrison. I'm 67 years old, and 3 years ago, I lost my husband Frank to a sudden heart attack. We'd been married for 43 years. Losing him shattered me in ways I didn't think I could survive. For months, I barely left the house. My children worried. My doctor suggested therapy. I felt like I was drowning. Then I met Karen Shields at a grief support group about a year ago. She was 52, elegant, put together, and she'd lost her husband 5 years earlier, or so she said. She seemed to understand everything I was feeling. She knew exactly what to say. Within weeks, we were having coffee every morning. Within months, she was my closest friend. The friend who pulled me back into life. Karen helped me redecorate the house, getting rid of Frank's things that I couldn't bear to touch. She helped me join a book club. She convinced me to start traveling again. Last spring, we took a trip to Napa Valley together. It was the first time I'd laughed, really laughed, since Frank died. I thought she'd saved my life. She also helped me with financial planning. Karen had worked in banking, she said, and after Frank died, I was overwhelmed by the accounts, the investments, the insurance money. Frank had always handled all that. I didn't even know how to log into our online banking. Karen patiently taught me, sitting beside me at my computer, helping me organize everything. She even convinced me to consolidate accounts to make things simpler. Looking back now, I was so grateful, so trusting, I never questioned anything. Which brings me back to Thanksgiving dinner, and Tommy's note hidden under my napkin. I had insisted Karen join us for the holiday. She had no family nearby, she said. My children were polite, but I could tell they found her a bit much, too enthusiastic, too involved in my life. But I'd brushed off their concerns. They just didn't understand how much Karen had helped me, how lost I'd been before she came along. Now, with that napkin clutched in my hand under the table, I felt a chill run down my spine. "Excuse me," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "I need to use the restroom." Karen looked up, concerned. "Are you all right, Linda? You look pale." "Just need a moment," I said, already pushing back my chair. I walked to the bathroom on shaking legs, pulled out my phone, and opened my banking app. It took 3 tries to get my password right because my hands were trembling so badly. What I saw when the account loaded made the room spin. My checking account, which should have had about $40,000, showed a balance of $362. I blinked, certain I was seeing things wrong. I refreshed the app. The number didn't change. I logged out and back in. Still the same. $362. My savings account was worse. It should have had close to $300,000 from Frank's life insurance and our retirement savings. The balance showed $0.00. I had to grip the bathroom counter to keep from falling. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of mistake, a banking error, a technical glitch. But even as I tried to rationalize it, I knew. Deep in my gut, I knew. I pulled up the transaction history with trembling fingers. The list went back months, dozens of transfers. Wire transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, purchases I never made, all of it happening gradually, carefully, small enough amounts that I wouldn't notice in my day-to-day spending. The biggest transfers had happened in just the last 2 weeks. Someone had stolen almost everything I had. And that someone was sitting at my Thanksgiving table, eating my food, pretending to be my friend. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at my phone, my entire world crumbling. There was a soft knock at the door. "Grandma?" It was Tommy's whisper. "Are you okay?" I opened the door. My grandson slipped inside, his face tight with worry. "You saw it, didn't you?" he whispered. "Tommy, how did you know?" He glanced toward the hallway, then back at me. I need to tell you something, but you can't let Miss Karen know that you know. Not yet. Sweetheart, what's going on? Last week, when I was here after school, you were taking a nap. Miss Karen didn't know I was in the den doing homework. I heard her on the phone in the kitchen. He swallowed hard. Grandma, she was talking about you. About money. She said, "The Morrison account is almost empty. Another week and I'll have it all. Then I'll move to the next one, just like we planned." She said your name, Grandma. She said you were easy because you were so trusting. My knees actually buckled. Tommy grabbed my arm. I wanted to tell you right away, but Mom said I probably misunderstood. She said Miss Karen was probably talking about work, about someone else. But I knew I heard right. So today, when you gave me your phone to look up the football scores, I checked your bank account. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I should have made you believe me sooner. This 11-year-old child had tried to warn his mother, tried to protect me, and the adults hadn't listened. I pulled him into a tight hug. You did exactly right, sweetheart. You're very brave. I pulled back and looked at him seriously. Now listen carefully. We need to go back out there and act like everything is normal. Can you do that? He nodded, but his eyes were scared. What are you going to do? I'm going to handle this, I said, with more confidence than I felt. But I need your help. Can you be my spy? Despite everything, his eyes lit up a little. Really? Really, go back to dinner. If Karen tries to leave or makes any phone calls, you come get me immediately. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. We walked back to the dining room together. I was amazed at how steady my hands were as I took my seat. Karen looked up with that warm, concerned smile I'd grown to love over the past year. Feeling better, dear? Much better. I lied. I think I just need to eat something. I picked up my fork and took a bite of turkey that tasted like sawdust. Across the table, Tommy gave me the smallest nod. My daughter was telling a story about her office holiday party. My son was teasing his wife about her terrible singing. And Karen was laughing, sipping wine, playing the role of beloved family friend perfectly. But now I saw it. The way her eyes flickered to me occasionally, assessing, the way she'd positioned herself closest to the door, the expensive watch on her wrist that was new this week. She was wearing my money on her wrist, sitting at my table, eating my food. The anger that rose in me then was unlike anything I'd ever felt. I'm not a confrontational person. Frank used to joke that I'd apologize if someone bumped into me. But this woman had wormed her way into my life, into my grief, into my trust. She'd pretended to care about me while systematically robbing me blind. I needed proof. I needed to be smart about this. Karen, I said casually, I was thinking about that trip to Charleston you suggested for next month. Should we book it tonight? I can transfer the deposit right now. I watched her carefully. For just a second, her mask slipped. There was a flash of something in her eyes. Panic? Calculation? Oh, let's not worry about that now, she said smoothly. We're having such a lovely evening. We can deal with boring trip planning later. She didn't want me accessing my accounts. She didn't want me to see what she'd done. Not yet. She probably had a plan for when I would discover it, some story about a banking error, some way to pose as my savior while she disappeared with my money. You're right, I agreed, smiling. More wine? The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I laughed at the right times, contributed to conversations, and all the while my mind was racing. What was I going to do? Call the police? But I had given Karen access to my accounts. I had signed documents, probably without reading them carefully. Would they even believe she'd stolen from me? Or would it look like I'd simply let her help me and now regretted it? I needed evidence. I needed to understand exactly what she'd done and how. After dinner, as everyone moved to the living room for coffee and pie, I excused myself again, claiming I needed to grab dessert plates from the garage. Instead, I slipped into my home office and quietly closed the door. My computer was still on. I pulled up my email and started searching. There had to be something, some trail of what Karen had done. I found it in my trash folder. Dozens of emails from my bank about wire transfers, account changes, new authorized users. I'd never seen them because they'd been automatically deleted. But the trash kept emails for 30 days. My hands shook as I started screenshotting everything on my phone. Wire transfer confirmations. Documents I'd supposedly signed electronically. Authorizations for Karen Shields to act on my behalf. Some of the signatures looked like mine, but as I looked closer, they were slightly off. Had she forged them? Or had she tricked me into signing things I didn't understand? Then I found something that made me gasp. An email from 3 months ago regarding the sale of Frank's boat. Frank's beloved sailboat that had been his prized possession that I couldn't bear to sell. According to this email, I had sold it for $85,000. The money had been wired to an account I didn't recognize. I never sold that boat. I never would have. It was still in storage at the marina, or it should be. My phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. She's getting ready to leave. Says she has an early morning tomorrow. I looked at the time. It was only 7:30. She was running. She knew the timeline was closing. Maybe she'd planned to take whatever was left and disappear this weekend. I took a deep breath and made a decision. I forwarded all the emails to my own personal account, then to my son's email. Then I took photos of everything on my phone. Whatever happened next, I had evidence. When I came back to the living room, Karen was indeed gathering her things. Early morning tomorrow, she was saying apologetically. Medical appointment I can't miss. Oh, that's too bad, I said, and I meant it in a way she couldn't understand. It was too bad she'd thought she could do this to me. Too bad she'd underestimated a grieving widow. Too bad she'd never considered that an 11-year-old boy might be smarter than her. I walked her to the door. She hugged me tight. Thank you for including me today, Linda. You and your family mean the world to me. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. How many times had she said similar things to other women? How many other families had she infiltrated? Your family to me too, Karen, I said, and watched her eyes soften. That's why it hurts so much. Her expression changed. Just slightly. What do you mean? I checked my bank account. The mask didn't just slip this time. It shattered. I watched her face transform from warm concern to cold calculation in an instant. Linda, I can explain. I'm sure you can. You're very good at explaining things, at making people trust you, at making lonely, grieving women feel like you're their savior. I held up my phone. I have all the emails, all the transfers, all the forged signatures, and I've already sent copies to my son, who happens to be a lawyer, in case you were wondering. That last part was only half true. David was a corporate lawyer, not a criminal one, but she didn't need to know that. Karen's face went completely blank. Then she smiled, but it was nothing like the warm smiles I'd grown used to. This smile was cold and sharp. You can't prove anything. You gave me access to those accounts. You signed those documents. You'll look like a confused old woman who trusted someone and now regrets it. No one will believe you. Maybe, I said. But they'll believe the pattern. Because you've done this before, haven't you? I'm not your first lonely widow. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear. I'm leaving now, she said, and you won't see me again. Actually, said a voice behind me, you're not going anywhere. I turned to see my son David standing there, his phone in his hand. I've been recording this entire conversation, he said calmly, and I've already called the police. They should be here in about 3 minutes. Karen looked between us, and I saw her weighing her options. Run? Talk her way out? But we were blocking the door, and through the window I could already see red and blue lights approaching. What I didn't know then, what I would learn in the days and weeks that followed, was just how extensive Karen's operation was. Her real name was Catherine Sheridan. She was part of a sophisticated ring targeting elderly widows and widowers across 3 states. The grief support group where I'd met her, she'd been planted there deliberately. She had a partner who worked at the facility, identifying vulnerable targets. I was the 7th woman she'd stolen from in 18 months. The total amount taken from all her victims was over $2 million. Most of it was gone, spent, or moved overseas, but some was recovered. I would eventually get back about 40% of what she took from me. The FBI agent who interviewed me was kind but direct. Mrs. Morrison, you're lucky. Your grandson's warning and your quick action meant we could catch her before she disappeared completely. The other victims didn't realize what had happened until it was too late. Lucky. I supposed I was. Lucky to have Tommy. Lucky that I'd listened to him instead of dismissing his concerns like the adults had initially done. Lucky that my son thought to record that conversation. But I didn't feel lucky. I felt foolish and betrayed. I'd let this woman into my life, into my home, into my grief. I'd trusted her with everything. The hardest part wasn't the money, though losing 60% of my savings hurt deeply. The hardest part was realizing how vulnerable I'd been, how easily I'd been manipulated, how my grief and loneliness had made me blind to red flags that seemed so obvious in hindsight. Karen, or Catherine, or whatever her real name was, had studied me. She'd known exactly how to approach me, what to say, how to act. She'd researched Frank, mentioning his favorite authors and sports teams as if by coincidence. She'd carefully built a friendship designed to make me dependent on her. The trial happened 6 months later. I had to testify, as did the other victims. Sitting in that courtroom, listening to the stories of the other women she'd stolen from, I felt a strange mix of rage and kinship. We were all widows. We were all in our 60s or 70s. We had all been targeted because we were grieving and alone. Catherine Sheridan showed no remorse. She sat there in her expensive suit, paid for with our money, and maintained that she'd done nothing wrong, that we'd all willingly given her access to our accounts, that she was just a financial advisor doing her job. The jury didn't buy it. She was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Her partner got 12 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough, but it was something. Here's what I want you to understand if you're listening to this story. Loneliness makes us vulnerable. Grief makes us blind. And there are people in this world who see that vulnerability as opportunity. After Frank died, I thought I would never recover. Karen presented herself as my recovery, my new beginning, and I grabbed onto that with both hands because I was drowning, and she threw me a rope. I didn't stop to question if the rope was real or if it was pulling me under. The red flags were there. The way she pushed to consolidate my accounts, the way she discouraged me from talking to my children about financial matters, saying they'd just worry unnecessarily. The way she was always available, always present, inserting herself into every aspect of my life. The way she rushed things, always saying we needed to act quickly on financial decisions. But I didn't see them because I didn't want to see them. I wanted to believe that someone cared about me that much, that I'd found a true friend in my darkest hour. Tommy saw what I couldn't. An 11-year-old child recognized danger that I, an adult with 67 years of life experience, missed entirely. Children don't have the same social conditioning we do. They haven't learned to ignore their instincts to be polite. When something feels wrong to them, they trust that feeling. We should do the same. My relationship with my children has changed since all this happened. I'd been so independent, so reluctant to burden them with my problems. I see now that pushing them away made me an easier target. Karen had encouraged that distance, subtly suggesting that my children were too busy to be bothered with my concerns. Now, we have a new rule in our family. No major financial decisions without a family discussion. My children have access to my accounts, not to control me, but to protect me. I'm not embarrassed about that anymore. It's not about being old or incompetent, it's about being smart. And Tommy? Tommy is my hero. I think about how easily his warning could have been dismissed. How close we came to ignoring what he'd heard because it seemed unlikely, because Karen was so trusted, because what could a child know about adult matters? We almost made a terrible mistake. We almost prioritized politeness and doubt over a child's instinct for danger. I'm grateful every day that I looked at that napkin, that I trusted him, that I checked my account when he asked me to. I've spoken to some of the other victims since the trial. We've formed a kind of support group, ironically enough. We share our stories, warn each other about new scams we've heard about. We've even started a nonprofit to educate seniors about financial fraud. One of the women told me something that stuck with me. She said, "They don't just steal our money, they steal our ability to trust. That's the real crime." She's right. Recovering financially is one thing, recovering emotionally is something else entirely. Even now, a year later, I find myself questioning everyone's motives. When someone is kind to me, I wonder what they want. When someone offers to help, I look for the angle. But I'm working on it. I'm learning that there's a difference between being careful and being closed off, between being smart and being scared, between protecting yourself and isolating yourself. And I'm learning to listen to the people who love me, my children, my grandchildren, my real friends. The ones who were there before the grief, who'll be there after the grief, who don't need me to be anything other than who I am. That Thanksgiving dinner was 17 months ago now. We still talk about it sometimes, my family and I. Tommy jokes that he's my personal bodyguard now. He takes the responsibility seriously. Last month, when a contractor came to give me a quote on some house repairs, Tommy insisted on being there for the meeting, taking notes on his iPad. He's 12 now, but that protective streak hasn't faded. My daughter Michelle apologized about a dozen times for not believing Tommy initially. I told her what I wish someone had told me. We're conditioned to trust adults, to doubt children, to think we know better. We're not. Sometimes, the clearest vision comes from the people with the least bias. I still have moments of anger, Moments where I think about Karen or Catherine sitting in prison and it doesn't feel like enough justice. She didn't just take my money. She took my sense of safety, my ability to trust my own judgment. She weaponized my grief. But mostly, I try to focus on what I learned and who I became after. I'm more careful now, yes, but I'm also more connected to my family, more willing to ask for help, more aware that strength isn't about doing everything alone. And I'm more appreciative of the quiet heroes in our lives. The kids who speak up even when adults don't listen. The family members who worry about us even when we push them away. The instincts that tell us something's wrong even when everything looks right on the surface. If you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, if you've lost someone and you're vulnerable and someone new has come into your life offering to help with your finances, please be careful. There are wonderful, genuine people in the world, but there are also predators who specifically target people in pain. Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't make major financial decisions in isolation. Talk to your family, talk to a professional who isn't connected to this new person in your life. Check your accounts regularly. Don't give anyone complete access to your finances, no matter how much you trust them. And listen to your children, your grandchildren, your family members when they express concern. They might see something you're missing. They might save you, the way Tommy saved me. That folded napkin sits in my desk drawer now. Grandma, check your bank account. Right now. Trust me. I keep it as a reminder, not of what I lost, but of what I almost lost. And of the brave 11-year-old who trusted his instincts and saved me from losing everything. Thank you for listening to my story. I'm sharing it because I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. Be careful out there. Trust your gut. Protect each other. And always, always listen when someone you love tries to warn you about danger, no matter how young they are. We're all in this together.